Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode, which is kind of like a part two episode now from the last one, where we were talking about the cheating scandal, the drone gate, whatever name you have coined, the revelations that we have been learning out of Paris with the Canadian women's national team, and more so Canada soccer. So to continue this part two conversation is AC joining me here again. AC, thanks for taking the time and chatting with me about this the day of again.
Yeah, it's the part two that nobody wanted.
Yeah, I don't when we uploaded the first one, I was like, I that was on my bingo card for Olympics content, and certainly part two was also not on my bingo card either. But that's kind of the name of the game of women's football. Today, we learned the news of the FIFA sanctions that have been given to the players, Canada Soccer, and the Canadian women's national team. Beth Priestman, Joey Lombardi, and Jasmine Manner, the three assisting or two of the assistant coaches and head coach Beth Priestman have been suspended for a year on football activity, so they cannot do anything, coach anything football related for the next year. The team has also been given a 6 point deduction. So we're filming this right before the France game. So they currently sit with negative 3 points on the table. Canada Soccer has also been fined around 300,000 Canadian dollars, which is a hefty, hefty fine for a federation that has been financially struggling. Big news, big sanctions, obviously. We know the New Zealand Olympic Committee was calling for FIFA to dock Canada 3 points if they were to win against New Zealand, which they did, and possibly award that to New Zealand. That was not the case. The case has been that they've been docked 6 points. I want to hear your reaction on these sanctions. Are they fair? Are they not fair? Is the 6 points a little bit too harsh, as some of the people have been calling for it? And what are your reactions on this?
I mean, I did take a couple days off of the internet, so I feel like I'm a little bit more balanced than last time. So everyone, I'm doing okay. Thank you for texting me though. I appreciate it. Um, is this fair? No, it's not. It's not fair. It doesn't feel proportional. But I think, as I said last time, like we were made an example of, and so it kind of has been really interesting to see everyone's takes on like punitive measures and like punishment because like it's just yes, we did violate the ethics of sport. The players did not directly do that, but the players are directly suffering from that right now, and so it felt disproportional to me, but I'm sure some think it's proportional. It's all kind of a matter of opinion, but it sucks super, super bad. I feel really bad for all the players.
Does a 1 year suspension surprise you? I was kind of thinking more around of like a 3-ish year suspension. Kind of feel like a 1 year
Three?
feels like a
I mean,
slap
you
on the
don't need
wrist.
three. Like, you don't need three because their career's done. Like, you don't need three.
Yep.
Like it's done now. So it's kind of just like, yeah, you get a year, but are you gonna get a good job after this? Probably not.
Mm,
And it does feel pretty harsh because you see all these men's coaches, or honestly, all across the board, all genders. I'm not going to gender this. You see a ton of coaches doing shady shit, but like Bev got caught. And
bad.
so Bev's career is now done at 38. And two of the best coaches in Canada who, potentially could have been candidates for like the Northern Super League or just to continue the youth work that they're doing are now also gone. So yeah, it feels harsh for sure, but again, we're being made an example of here.
Mhm. And New Zealand also released a statement saying that they are happy to see Canada be sanctioned, but they were also hoping that those 3 points would have been rewarded for New Zealand. Um,
Well, you didn't
Obviously,
win the game, New Zealand.
and
I'll
I
give you
think
one,
that
maybe.
that was a little bit of a harsh statement from them. I think it's totally fair to want to say let's dock Canada the 3 points. I think that really what was my expectation of what we would have seen as a sanction. I think 6 points is heavy. And
Yeah.
New Zealand
Three
not
would have
getting
sat better. Three
yeah,
would
we
have
would have
sat
slept
better.
better for sure.
Yeah.
So they currently sit negative 3 points on the table. Um, is this kind of over? Is this a disqualification with a bow handed to the team?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much you're not going to qualify for the group stage unless you produce a miracle, kind of pretty much. And if other things go your way, because if they get 9 points now, I mean, they'll get three. Will three be enough to be a best third place team? It's like we can't know. And then if we are third place, we play, probably Spain. So that in itself is almost an automatic disqualification. No offense to us, but
Hmm?
yeah, it's a pretty much like we're gonna make it impossible for you guys to get out of the group stage.
Yeah, impossible is pretty much the way this has been coined, and I think obviously France, huge team, Colombia, a huge team. Canada will be praying that other groups do them a favor, but also some kind of miracle of a draw happens in the group for them to be able to progress. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the players who, after the statement, I actually went back, maybe a bit of a mistake, but I went back to read some of the posts of the players that posted on social media when they got announced to be going to the Olympics. And I mean, uh, the words, the way they were so proud of their accomplishment, the way
You
so
shouldn't have
many of
done
them.
that.
I know I should have not, shouldn't have. It was a mistake. But I think it kind of reminded me, and I already knew this was obviously not very great for the players, but how much damage this has caused. And I think before we start talking about the players and is this fair or not, there's two things that are true and two things that can exist at the same time. The players did not directly cheat, but their preparation phase has been cheated. That we cannot deny, and that cannot be changed. And it seems as though a lot of the players were not aware of those cheating elements in their preparation phases. Another thing that is completely true is also this is unfair. But at the same time, this is a team sport. When a team wins, it's a W under the player's record, it's a W under the coach's record. When they won gold, everybody gold medal. The coaches got a gold medal, the team got a gold medal, and if they lose and they get sanctioned, it's across the board. So even though there's a little bit of unfairness there, that's just the name of the game. That's just how things work. So both things, I don't think either of us are debating or like denying it. Those are true and they're just the hard facts and realities. But I mean, the damage here are some legacies completely tarnished. Some of these players are not going to get to see another Olympics possibly in their career. Some of these players have worked so hard, sacrificed so much, worked back from so many injuries to get to this point. I mean, how would you even describe what the players would be feeling right now? And you called this on the last episode kind of the biggest betrayal. Like, this is the ultimate betrayal of trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you mentioned there about it being a team sport, like this is an extreme example of that. If someone on your team makes a mistake, you have to kind of deal and live with that mistake. And this is like the worst possible mistake that could have been made and the worst possible outcomes. But I'm not going to pretend that I know how the players are feeling. Like, obviously, I played myself, but I've never been in any kind of circumstance where, yeah, this level of like betrayal of trust has happened. So I'm not going to pretend I know what they're feeling like. But I was looking at some, like, a lot of the players have been silent on this. We haven't heard since kind of the post game interviews, but I was looking at some of the like alumni and what they're saying. So like Steph Labe, for example, furious, fuming, sad, heartbroken. These players don't deserve this. They've been let down by many of their own people, not just national team staff. Interesting point. Standing with these players and every player that has ever been part of this program and worked so hard to build it, not tear it down. That's Steph Labe. She also had one the other day about, how much she studied for the PKs. Um, Kaylin Kyle, only the players suffer for stupidity and selfishness. I mean, Bev and the others are definitely suffering as well, but the amount of work that goes into prep for an Olympic Games to only have their dreams and hopes shattered. As a little girl, I dreamt of representing Canada in Olympics, and I can't even imagine the pain the players are feeling. So I think that probably goes to speak to it. I like what Diana said as well. Like, I think most of them are mainly just speechless. And yeah, I can't imagine the kind of pain going that through that camp right now. Really, really tough to think about.
Yeah, and I know last episode we kind of talked about how this team has never been in the perfect condition to go out and perform, but this kind of feels like a different kind of condition that they do have to perform. It's not again, a federation fight. This is you've been betrayed by those closest to you. Does that switch up the mood in the locker room? Does that make it just too difficult to shut out and too difficult to be able to perform under?
Yeah, I mean, the staff and the team were not watching the Olympics opening ceremony together. I think there's a very obvious rift right now between the staff and the players, and that's completely understandable. I think probably the players are just coming at it from an angle of we're going to support each other, we're going to play for each other. And then the remaining staff is kind of like, we have to prove that, first of all, we have integrity. Second of all, we're willing to do whatever it takes to help this team, like support this team mentally. I'm sure the mental coaches are doing like double time right now. So yeah, there's a big rift between the coaches and the players.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, the coaching careers are pretty much over and they're pretty young. Like you highlighted Bev is 38. Jasmine Manner, for those who don't know, is only 29. So it's not like coaches who have been in the game for so long. They've got a few years left in their career and it just ended a little bit early. It's really not that. Um, and honestly, I've been kind of dabbling with the question of just why, like why this level of recklessness. Now that we know that there has been a little bit of a pattern of using drones, not just this Olympics, but leading up to the Olympics, that goes back to the Olympics before friendlies. I mean, there's been highlighted over the last 4 years incidents or instances that possibly there was a use of drones. Why do you think there was this recklessness and belief that they were not going to get caught at the Olympics and do this and risk this against a team like New Zealand, who hasn't beaten them since 1987? Like it wasn't like the US in the finals. This was New Zealand in the group stages.
Yeah, it's that like almost makes it so much worse. Like it's makes a real mockery of it. But no disrespect to New Zealand, of course. I think they were absolutely going to spy on France as well. Like I probably was already like they had already planned the route, right? So it was definitely going to continue happening. Um, why were they this reckless? I mean, I think if anything, that the Rick Westhead articles have shown anyone who doesn't know TSN, check it out. He's an investigative journalist. Don't get mad at Rick. He's doing his job. Either way, I think what that has shown is a real pattern dating back a long time. I think the earliest that the articles mentioned was 2016 for a U16 camp. U16. That is inconsequential. It does not matter whether you win at the U16 level. And so I think, yeah, this is just part of their behavior. It has been for a long time, and it's their way to get an edge. And it seems completely unnecessary to most of us. And it seems like they don't really trust their players enough if they need to resort to this, or maybe it's that common practice. Either way, it's disgusting. It's cheating, and the fact that it's been going on for so long is probably the reason that it continued to happen and that they felt safe to do it, because they literally have not been caught if the earliest was 2016, which I'm sure it wasn't, for the last 8 years. And so it's just common practice, common behavior to them. So yeah, they didn't think about it.
Getting very comfortable committing dangerous behavior like this. And I'm glad you mentioned the TSN break reports because they've also highlighted the fact that this is not just Beth Priestman. This dates back to John Herdman's era. And for those who don't know, John was the women's national team head coach from 2011 to 2017, 18, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, I think 28, like, and early 2018, and then he took the men's job in 2018 as well
Yep.
later on.
And so after the women's national team, he went over to the men's national team. And just before that transition period, Beth Priestman was his assistant coach. I think we're starting to learn that this is something that both head coaches felt comfortable. Perhaps I think there's kind of been allegations that it's been John Herdman that has brought this culture of cheating. I want to talk about this culture, this coaching staff culture that will have to get completely wiped out. But over the last 48 hours or over the few reports that we have seen, what stands out to you most, if anything, of this cheating culture that has been going on for almost 10 years now?
Yeah, I think what I think about the most, or what I have thought about the most, is that a lot of those players from 2012 on describe John Herdman as the best coach that they've ever had, right? Like they're like John Herdman is like changed the program, won the first medal, won the second medal. And so was that because he went too hard in all aspects? From everything I've heard about John Herdman, like he goes 150% at everything he does. He expects the exact same thing from his staff. And so if you're not working to that level, and maybe if you're not taking getting a competitive edge to that level, that you would be left behind. And everything I've read so far seems to indicate that there was a culture starting from back in the days with John Herdman that, this was expected, that you would do this in order to help the team because that is your job. And if you didn't, someone would be found that would be doing it. And so I think this really calls into question some of John Herdman's legacy. First and foremost, I think we got a question whether, anything's going to happen with John Herdman. I doubt it. He seems to be pretty safe with Toronto FC. I doubt Toronto FC will fire him. I mean, they might fire him for his results at Toronto FC, but they probably won't fire him for something that he was implicated in before he started there.
Hmm.
And so that's just what I've been thinking about a lot. Like that 2012 generation in like specifically speaks so highly of John Herdman. And a lot of them are coaching now or involved in the game because of John Herdman. And so it's just really interesting that he just seems to have taken it maybe a bit too far with his intensity and competitive
Hmm.
spirit.
Yeah. And one of the other coaches that has kind of been within the bubble is Emma Humphreys. She is also Beth Priestman's wife and also a New Zealand citizen. So it's just like the New Zealand kind of story. Just it's so many connections. It's insane. But she has been actually with the team in France. There's been pictures of that. She also is responsible for the youth national teams. She's taken them to World Cups, to CONCACAFs. Again, how deep is this, and how much of a cleanup do we need to see across the national team stages to assure that this is a culture that is completely wiped out and almost not a cancer that can grow back again at some point if you leave a bit of it left there.
Honestly, like Emma Humphreys' question is really interesting. And so she was supposed to be I think, director of soccer, maybe for the Whitecaps, for the
Mm,
Super League team, Northern
mm,
Super League team. But I heard recently that she had actually left the Whitecaps to take a full time role at Canada Soccer. And so that becomes really interesting now because her wife is about to be not deported, but definitely most likely kicked out of Canada Soccer. And
yep,
so that's very, very interesting to me. She most likely won't get a job with the youth national teams now either. I don't see how she keeps that or how they even stick around. But yeah, it's all like it's so weird. It's almost like New Zealand was like, "Hey, you took all of our coaches back in like 2011. We're playing the long game and we're gonna wreck you guys." Like what? It's so crazy. Even with the brother connection, like what? Like
yes.
what? It's so weird.
Are,
Just ask your wife, like ask your brother. Like you don't need to send the drone this time.
can you mention some of these connections if people don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, Bev Priestman's wife played for the New Zealand national team for however many years and like coached at the youth level there. She's literally from New Zealand. And then Jasmine Mander's brother is a physiotherapist for the New Zealand women's soccer team. And
Yep.
so, did you really need to send the drone this time, guys?
And also, Beth Priestman, back in 2009 up to 2013, was the head of women's football and head of
Yeah,
football in New Zealand. So, again,
yeah.
it is like the connection between those teams is so, so tight. And it just feels like you're right. They took all their coaches about 10 years ago and said, yep, we're brewing revenge. And I think somebody said this really
Kept the
nicely.
receipts.
They kept the receipts, and it's almost like the New Zealand players thought that they spotted a drone, but they actually spotted an entire scheme. We got a question or a few questions around. Obviously, there's no future of Beth Friesman Canada soccer. I don't really know if she has a future in soccer, but also we have seen that some teams in some nations are pretty desperate to get anybody with a British accent who knows how to run a soccer drill. Doesn't need to have a British accent, but Jorge Vilda is coaching the Moroccan women's national team. So certainly, if you're a bad person, that does not mean you cannot
You can
get,
bounce back.
yeah. pretty quickly. Unfortunately, that could be a topic for another time. But who can replace and what sort of head coach should we be bringing in to coach this team? Because what we have seen over the last 10 years that it's been internal hires, it's been an assistant coach becoming a head coach, a head coach going from it's almost been like a Canada soccer assignment every single time. And I feel like personally, and I'd love to hear your answer to this, it's got to be somebody who knows, I mean, really little things about Canada soccer because in some ways you want them to have zero association with what a shit show things have been for the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's pretty natural to want like complete change at this point because as we talked about last time, like Bev's fingerprint has just been all over this youth national team program, the senior national team program, along with John Herdman over the last literal decade, decade and a half even. And so it makes total sense that people want like just reset button. Honestly, fair enough. I would take that. I do think it's probably important to take someone that has knowledge of the Canadian soccer ecosystem because I do find it to be very unique.
Hmm.
There are very unique challenges within Canadian soccer. And so a name that has been floating around is Carmelina Moscato. I've heard that from several people now. Obviously, currently the Louisville assistant
Assistant.
coach in the NWSL, previously with Tigres. Yeah, I'm not going to make any speculations as to whether she would take that job or not. I think Carmen's a great coach. I would love to see it, but also totally understand the instinct to just refresh. Like this clearly is not working. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. And we kind of touched on this a little bit and you again highlighted the fact that Beth Friesman has her fingerprints all over. Um, how does this affect interest of national or youth team players wanting to represent the senior team? Of like, do I want to be included in this? And Steph Labbe said, again, these players have to fight and deal with the consequences of others' behaviors, and it could be as close as their head coaches. Like putting on that maple leaf crest does not look like a very good and fun time. And I can't even imagine what these players have had to go through in the past just like 2 summers.
Yeah, I think for people who don't have context, in lack of a professional league in Canada, the utmost highest dream for every girl in Canada has been playing for the national team. And that has been a very narrow dream for the longest while, since the national team has existed because it's only ever 20, 25 people. And so I think thankfully, the NSL is here now and girls can still strive to play professional soccer now, like regardless of their national team affiliation. And so I think that in itself will keep girls striving. And there's a lot of girls that play soccer and love soccer in Canada. And so I'm not too worried about the youth. I think they'll have something else to latch onto now. I
Mm,
think it's a huge disappointment for them. We talked about it a little bit last time, how these like waves of excitement helped inspire these players and these generations of players through the Olympics in the last 3, 4 cycles. And so I'm just glad that Diana Matheson has stepped up and created this league. Another player that has, spoken up about this recently, kind of being like, I didn't know what to say. This is so disappointing, but please support the players. That's what it comes down to.
yeah. How do we support the players?
Support the players. Yeah, just watch the game, like show up to the watch party, keep cheering them on. I think the worst thing we could do is tune out now. Yeah, at least watch their games, like watch them try to do the impossible. And if they do the impossible, like let's go.
Celebrate them. Don't really
Celebrate the heck
question.
out of that. Yes, don't question their integrity. They are just competitors that got caught in a really terrible situation who want no part of this and who have been such great ambassadors of the game in Canada. And so please keep watching and supporting them.
Yeah. And I kind of wanted to end this off with a very similar question of last time of how do we move forward now knowing that this federation has to pay this $300,000 fee. One of the biggest head coaches is on a 1 year suspension from FIFA. She's also been suspended by Canada Soccer. Canada Soccer is looking to appeal FIFA's decision and we'll hope to get a result obviously before the Olympics is concluded, and again, kind of hope to go through. Uh, but what's next? What is the step? And I feel like now, I mean, it doesn't get much worse than this. All the beans are going to come out, all the tea is going to get spilled, as one would say. Um, it's kind of like we're going to keep digging. The grave is only going to get bigger and wider. Um, and more dark, harsh realities are going to come out. And I feel like that's an important part of the process of moving forward.
Yeah, we probably just need to accept at this point that we've been cheating for a little while, and that's absolutely not okay. Um, but in terms of moving forward, yeah, I think definitely more people are going to get pulled into this. There's going to be people that are let go. I mean, Bev hasn't even been let go, but like the dignified thing now would be to step down, I would think. But yeah, certainly people are going to continue to kind of feel the results of this, all these sanctions, and also how embarrassing is it? I bet most federations are like, oh, 300,000, whatever. We're like, oh my god, like how are we
Pay
gonna put
this.
food on the table? Like we're not gonna be able to. We're so broke. But
Yep.
you already know Kevin Blue's going to come up with some kind of crazy ass sponsorship.
Yep.
Lululemon head coach of the women's national team, something like that.
So the Lululemon. Oh, that's
That won't work with
hilarious.
Nike.
No, I feel like they might have a few negotiations to get over there. A final question, and I want to know too because I want to know this answer to this question, and we got this on Twitter of any advice on how Canadian fans can deal with this? Because personally, I obviously am very excited for the Olympics and to to watch some of the other games as well. But I'm also very excited to take almost a week off from soccer, from football, from Canada soccer once this wraps up. So that's personally how I'll be recovering. But do you have any pieces of advice that maybe have helped you kind of relax the
Yeah,
mind a little bit?
this was Michaela.
Hmm.
Shout out Michaela. I know it's been
Yeah.
tough, but yeah, turn Twitter off. I've been
Mm.
good. Actually, just turn that shit off. It's not good for your brain. You don't need all the bad information all at once. You can read about it later on. You don't have to hear about it right away. For myself, just spend some time walking my dogs,
There you go.
having a couple good meals. Yeah, I mean, obviously in context of it's still just soccer, it's just football, but allow yourself to be upset, and then I'm gonna get right back on the horse tomorrow. Go to the watch party with AFC Toronto, and hopefully just have a good time there and kind of get reconnected to why we're all here, which is just to support these players and watch some soccer. Have a good time.
It is just a little blip at the journey of being a soccer fan, a Canadian soccer fan.
Tiny blip.
Just a little burp on the way.
Yeah.
It's gonna be exciting to see. I think I'm looking forward. I mean, with everything, all this drone noise, pun intended, because I feel like that drone was probably too noisy that got spotted. But all this noise that we've been seeing over the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty excited. 2 weeks. I mean, it feels like it's been 2 weeks. It's literally been 3 days.
Yeah,
But I'm
dude. It's been like 3 days.
it's only been 3 days. Jeez, longest 3 days of my life. But I'm excited to see how the players bounce back. Like, I think
Yeah, me
we
too.
might see a completely different Canadian team again in the next two games that, like, yeah, there are going to be a bunch of badass players
It's
on
gonna
there.
be really interesting.
Yeah, they're going to show people and a lot of doubters that, hey, we do know how to kick a ball without a drone
Yeah.
spied on our opponents. And I think
And
that's
we
going to
deserve to be here. And we're the reigning gold medalists, by the way.
tell them. We'll talk about that question and Japan and all those other drone thingies once this Olympics is concluded and more of the investigations are concluded. AC, you want to shout out some of your newsletter stuff, which I'm sure by the end of the month or the end of the Olympics, we'll have a good rundown of everything that has been happening. And you've also been staying on top of this when you've been able. Where can people head to your work?
Yeah, it's www.wsoccer.ca. That's where the newsletter is, and not Twitter right now, but again, soon I'll be back. So
Soon
also
she'll,
Instagram.
there you go. Soon she'll be back on Twitter. For now, she is handling all the other social media. Folks, I hope you've been enjoying the debriefs. Yeah, they've not been the funnest to talk about, but certainly very necessary to talk about. And hopefully there's no part three of this. And the next few episodes about the Olympics are about the other games and all the other fun drama that will come not surrounding the Canadian women's national team.